Welcome, everybody, to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm here with Chrisine Hassler. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Am I pronouncing the last name okay? Chrisine Hassler.
Yep, that works. That's
Amazing.
it.
So, for those of you that don't know, Christine is a master coach, spiritual psychologist, facilitator, and speaker with over 20 years of experience. She is the best-selling author of 3 books. Most recently, The Expectation Hangover, and I love the title. Free yourself from the past, change your present, and get what you really want. Sorry, expectation hangover. Free yourself from your past, change your present, and get what you really want. And is also the host of the top-rated podcast, Over It and On With It. So I'm excited to hear more about how you coach people live, on the show, and how you've really integrated this into just a natural state of being listening and adding value. I think there's a lot of importance in a way that we are always learning and listening and coaching each other wherever we go in the world. And
Yeah.
so I love that component of it. You're also a co-founder of Elementum Coaching Institute,
Mhm.
premium coaching certification program, and you're known for this global ability to identify what is holding someone back, giving that compassionate leadership, which I can sense through your energy in your body, and the way that you're communicating with me silently right now, and able to apply this inside of companies and organizations to really help increase productivity, decrease stress, which is so beautiful because so many people here need this, especially around the globe.
Yeah.
Has a master's degree in spiritual psychology, implements NLP, psychology, spirituality, science from your own life, which is really I always say a belief is a poor substitute for an experience. So the experience is really beautiful application, and really been all over the place. So, been on the Today Show, CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox, Style, New York Times. Amazing to see this, once we get out of our own way, you can show up into the meaningful impact we're here to make. So really excited to have you, really excited to learn from you, really excited to be here together. Thank you so much for your time, presence, and energy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
It's a gift, isn't it? Right. So where are you located right now?
So we live in Austin,
Mhm.
Texas. We have been here since 2020. I lived in California from 1998 till 2019. And in 2019, around September 2019, I got the feeling that something was going to happen. I didn't know what, but I just felt like we needed to leave California. We came to Austin before everyone else from California came to Austin. We came to Austin because my family's here. I grew up in Dallas, and my family's here, my parents and my sister and her husband and my nephews. And so that's where we are. That's where we are right now. We're currently having a freeze, which is just so trippy because we have summer for like 8 months, and then we get these weird freezes. It's just the world is definitely going through stuff right now, to put it lightly.
Well, she's really asking us to listen, right?
Oh
And
yeah, and we're not.
mm,
Some
which
of
is
us are.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Which is
yeah.
well, it's beautiful because we're here. Maybe these are the reasons why we get to
Mhm.
communicate and help to really empower that level of language and
Yeah,
communication. So
yeah, yeah.
it,
And one of the reasons we're not is not because people are, bad people or neglectful people or anything like that. It's because we are too caught up in our own trauma. We're a very
mm,
traumatized world, and people have just lived, you know, difficult lives for centuries and centuries. And so, we just aren't in a very coherent, cohesive, balanced place as humanity. So of course that's going to be mirrored back to us in our external world. One of my favorite teachings from my grad school, University of Santa Monica, is that our outer experience is a reflection of our inner reality. So if we look at the wars going on, the weather crises we're having, the natural disasters, all of that, that outer experience is a reflection of, what's happening inside for us globally. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, both my own internal work as a human being on this planet and my mission and my work in supporting other people in really, reparenting themselves and for lack of a better word, healing themselves, so that that outer experience of our internal reality is more healthy.
Profound, and so wise. I love it because, this is oftentimes not taught. It's oftentimes not discussed or talked about, the importance of really going inside, because we're so conditioned that everything needs to be happening on the outside. I need to get this done.
Right.
Go, 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 go. Right. And so when people are doing the work internally, it's like, well, you're not doing anything. What do you mean you're not? You know what I mean? And so I love that you bring this up, and you bring this up in such like conviction, because it's so needed, especially right now. And how that can be then applicable to your family values, that can be applicable to your community culture, that can be applicable to your organizational culture, your
Right.
city, your town, your state, your country, so on and so forth. And I thought, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when you talked about like how it's applicable, I've been a corporate speaker for years. I started speaking on corporate stages and at corporate events and association events and anything, you know, there, you name it, I've spoken at it. And especially the more corporate ones, they would ask me, okay, well, we need you to speak about like productivity and results and like how, like what can people do at work to be more productive and basically make the company more money. And I'd be like, but what I speak on is personal development. And they're like, but we need results. I'm like, well, that's how you get results, and that's how you get lasting results. And when I first started doing this kind of talking back in 2010, probably, I got more pushback. But as the world has been changing, I find more corporations are inviting this kind of conversation in, of like, when we actually help people take care of themselves, shift the inside. Because the fear was, if I go and talk to a corporation about making their employees more happy and doing their own internal work, the fear was that everybody would quit. They're like, no, 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 you can't talk about people digging deep and finding themselves, because then they may want to leave the corporation. But what ended up happening is people were able to recommit to their why and become better leaders and better employees because they were more balanced inside. And it's always inside out. We live in a world where we're conditioned to think, like you said, that the outside thing is going to fix us. And no one listening this is not new information for anyone listening. Everybody's heard, all right, you can chase happiness forever, but like something outside of us doesn't fix us on the inside. But some part of us still thinks it will. Some part of us thinks, well, but only if I really loved what I did, or only if my relationship was different, or only if I had a better relationship, or only if this health issue could go away. We seem to always have but if only this thing would be different, then I'd be so much happier. And to me, life doesn't really change until we take 100% responsibility for our life. We get out of blame, we get out of victim, we get out of when then thinking, and actually take full responsibility for our life right here, right now, in this moment, and know that we are the only ones that can truly change it.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Love it. And this is something that is built from trusting yourself, or learning to trust yourself. Would you agree?
Yeah, and trust. So let's talk about trust, because that's another thing that, people get tattooed on their arm. Trust or surrender or, gratitude. But let's talk about what those things really mean. So trust is tricky because most people don't have a great childhood. In the research, we teach inner child work, inner child workshops, and inner child work is one of my areas of great passion, especially now after having a child myself. And in my latest research, I found that 95% of the world have like not a great childhood. So let's define what a great childhood is. Basically, being raised in a place where you feel safe, secure, loved, you are encouraged to play, you're encouraged to explore. Basically, people get out of your way, allow you to be you, but there's still safety and boundaries and everything. And most people don't have that at all. They do not get that. Even if people that, come to our events or workshops that say, I didn't have that bad of a childhood, my childhood was great. But then I dig a little deeper and find out that their parents' marriage was tense, or they grew up in kind of a strict household, or mom was depressed on some level. There's usually always something that creates a pattern of like survival skills and having to cope and not really living our most authentic life. So if we look at trust, for example, if we know that about 95% of people don't really have the best childhood, they most likely didn't develop trust at a young age, because trust comes from being a little person in the world. Children can't regulate themselves. They can't regulate their emotions. They can't regulate their nervous system. It's really the parent's job to help with that. So we have this little person who just comes into the world completely trusting. And without parents, or at least one parent who is consistent and safe and nurturing and regulated most of the time. It's impossible for a person to be regulated all of the time. Maybe monks can do it, but I think most parents are going to have their moments of dysregulation. But without those things, how do we really develop trust? If as a child, we, are so expressive and we love our artwork, and we go to a parent and they're like, why did you make the house red? Houses aren't red. Then do we trust our creativity? If we tell a parent something and we ask them not to tell anyone, and then we find out they told someone, do we trust that we can tell anyone our deepest, darkest secrets? If we had a parent that left us, left the family, do we trust anyone? If we had a parent that abused us in some way, how can we ever trust love ever again? So if we look at trust, it's something that comes naturally when we're born, but it can be taken away so quickly. And because we don't want to get hurt again, and because our brains are wired to protect us, our brains are wired for negativity, our brains are wired to scan for anything that could be a threat. Because of all those things, trust is not something that comes easily. So when people say just trust the universe, it sounds really great. And most people be like, yeah, I'd love to surrender and trust the universe. But we've got an inner child in there and a nervous system that's like, well, I've trusted in the past before and that didn't turn out so well. So now I need to be really protective and make sure that I'm hyper vigilant and, second guessing everything, because I can't trust easily. Because if I trust, I'm just going to get hurt. So I think that when we talk about trust and really surrendering and really letting go, the first step in that is going back and really looking at, where did trust get broken? Where did it get violated in the first place? And how do we rebuild that so that it does feel safe to trust again?
So do you feel that when it comes, you mentioned regulation, and that I actually feel like the child can help regulate the parent. And because of that inherent trust into and that connection of presence and uh, uh, purity and that
Mm-hmm.
innocence that's connected from our divine essence right from the core when we come,
Mm-hmm.
that the parent would learn to regulate themselves by observing the mirror in the child. And as a result, by helping themselves learn to pay attention to the triggers or the emotional imbalances that are being triggered within the parent, as a result, they are learning to tap into themselves even more, to learn to understand that that little child is actually their greatest teacher. And so I find that uh, the child within us is actually really needing that little it doesn't need to be your child, it could be any child, right? Like, when you go to a village in India and you spend time with children, or in Brazil with the, like, it doesn't matter. The children are really communicating something really supernatural with you, because they're so deeply connected into their imaginative profile. It's about trusting yourself. And so is it possible that instead of learning to, or teaching them how to regulate, that we actually only need to regulate ourselves, so that as a result we can learn to listen to what the communication that's coming through them.
Mhm. Well, I agree that yes, the whole point is learning to regulate ourselves. But children, they actually don't have the ability to regulate their nervous system when they're young, and their emotions. It just, that part of the brain isn't developed yet. So I do agree that children can awaken in us
But is it not
our
coming
own.
through the body? Like, is there not more of a communication coming through the body? Because the inherent wisdom in the language that is given to us, even though it may not be fully developed in the brain, it is fully developed in the body. And so there's an intelligence that's communicating from the physiology that gives us 55% way more. So I'm just curious to think your perspective on this.
Yeah, well, absolutely. There's an innate intelligence in the body. And our nervous system is something that, I think we're talking about two different things. So our nervous system is something that develops over time, and our ability to emotionally regulate is something that develops over time as well. So if we're just talking like science, because the part of the brain isn't developed, children can't really regulate themselves like adults can, because it's something that happens as we get older. And so a big part of parenting and reparenting ourselves is teaching regulation. So I'll give you an example. So I have a 22-month-old. You know, she has big feelings. And one of my big jobs as her parent is to make sure I'm regulated. So when she gets upset, I'm not rushing in to interrupt the process. I'm breathing deeply. If she hurts herself, I hold her and I hum really low to like to regulate myself. So we co-regulate together. And I know there's been so many times when she's been a baby or she slept on me, and I can feel her relaxing. And of course, we co-regulate in that. And what you're saying, that beautiful innate intelligence and that sort of blank slate that children come in with, it absolutely translates to us through the subconscious and energetically, that incredible like joy and vitality and creativity and life force and everything about that. So I completely agree with you that children awaken that within us and can bring us back into presence so quickly. And coming into the present moment and really being in presence is one of the biggest ways we regulate. So it's all a dynamic that's working together. I think that's just the important thing to note. And when people are reflecting back on their own life as to why they may have anxiety, or they may, self-sabotage, or they may, not trust, is because they may have grown up in a home where there wasn't that safety and that trust, where their nervous system could learn how to regulate naturally. Because I found over working with people over 20 years, most people really don't know how to regulate themselves and are walking around in a hypo aroused state the majority of the time.
Yeah, beautiful. And this comes back to taking that 100% responsibility that you mentioned so beautifully at
Yeah,
the beginning, right?
yeah,
And that then shows up in our regular relationships, right? With, business, work, colleagues, you know, romance. If we can't fulfill that regulation within ourselves, we can't learn to navigate that regulation with another map of the world, a different level of consciousness, or whatever the case, somebody is going through, or situation.
yeah, yeah. One of the things I've noticed, I don't know how many of your listeners are parents. Do you have children? Are you a parent?
I can't wait to have kids. I can't wait.
Okay, all right, all right.
But no, I don't. I am
No, not yet. I didn't. My sense was no. But they're coming. So one of the things that I've really seen as a parent is how much a child, well, one will trigger your childhood stuff. But as a coach, what I've seen over, again, many years of doing this is, imagine you're a parent, you're a person who really isn't connected to unconditional love, who, maybe grew up abused, who had a lot of chaos. And as an adult or even young adult, you're not regulated, you're in survival patterns, you have a lot of self-criticism, not a lot of self-love. This is many people who have children. And then this child comes in and they're just unconditional love. For a lot of people, it's just too much. It's like too much love and too much innocence and too much of God coming at them. And so, because of that, so many people shut down. And that's what impacts their parenting. I've had so many clients that have said to me, I don't know how my parent couldn't love me. Because I've had many clients who did not feel loved by their parents, or at least a parent. And I'm like, the problem wasn't that your parent didn't feel love. The problem was it was too much love. And because they didn't feel loved and they didn't have that self-love, it was like too much of a vibration split where it's just like they kind of short circuited. And the only thing they could do was abuse, control, shut down, be emotionally unavailable, leave, abandon, neglect, all those kinds of things. So that's just the to speak to just the power of love that we come in with. And I think you and I are aligned in our mission to really help people reconnect with that, because it is our birthright and it's there in every single human.
Well, what I love about what you're sharing is that it's this like infinite level of intelligence that we inherently can come back to,
Right.
and all be that same state that we've come with originally from the get-go, right? Without needing to prove oneself anymore, or need to like I here,
Right.
like there's no force. There's just total like being in that state of presence of absolute like beaming, shining love. And we don't, for such a long period of time, I needed to prove myself. There was such a long period of time in my life where like, I can make it happen, like the warrior. And I realized that it really was just finding it within yourself, that you just, once you can really discover this innocence, this purity, this beauty of, you know, playing with that little boy within myself, playing within that little girl within myself, because we have to balance those energies, right? And it's like once that was fine, once that was able, and that once that was like committed, then I could like go and be in these villages or play with these kids and like my full expression.
Yeah.
And then that shows up in ability to communicate with elders or older people, of whether they're billionaires or CEOs, it doesn't matter, because then you're tapping into that level of connection with them.
Right.
And now they're like, wow, I can also be a child, because they're like,
Yeah.
this person is playful, this person is fun. And yes, we can have that dancing of energies. And so how important is it to bring this type of behavior back to
Yeah.
our organizations, to this type of experience? Because you're right, I feel like, can you imagine having these types of conversations regularly within organizations, where
Mhm.
people feel empowered, like they're playing within to create and move that productivity?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think play and also safety. I mean, there's such a lack of psychological safety in so many corporations. And if you don't have psychological safety, you can't play.
Mm.
You can't access that play, because play and that freedom and that energy you're talking about, where your heart opens and you lean forward and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to know everything about you. And you're so fun, no matter who you are. that can't happen unless there's safety, because it's a vulnerable thing. Play is a vulnerable thing because when we're in play, our armor is down. We're not scanning for negativity. We're not in survival mode. We're in such a different vibration. We're not like metaphorically waiting for a tiger to come in the room. We're so in that present moment. And there has to be safety for that. And so one of the biggest things that I work on when I come in and consult for organizations is, do we have psychological safety in this organization? What does psychological safety look like? All right. Is there transparency? Do people really feel like they can share anything they need to share? And do they know who to share it with? Is there too much of a hierarchy? Does it really feel like some people are way over here and some people are there? Are there cliques happening? Because when there's cliques in organizations, there's not psychological safety. What's the onboarding process? Like the people that have been there forever versus the people that are just coming in. What is the communication protocol? When people have an issue, do they even know what to do? What is the protocol for if someone's having a personal issue? All of these things create psychological safety, but that, all comes down to leadership. Whoever the leaders are, whatever the leadership team is, whatever the leadership style is, they're the quote unquote parents of the organization. And they're going to determine if there's psychological safety. So that's why it's so important. I think everyone's a leader, especially for people that, run organizations and are in more of those leadership positions in organization, is to be doing so much of their inner work. Like so much of this in their inner work. Like I worked with one organization and the like human resources person brought me in and wanted me to work with the team. And the CEO wasn't going to be part of it. And I'm like, I am not doing this work unless the CEO works one-on-one with me. Like otherwise, like it's a waste of my time. I'm not going to get anywhere with these people. So it definitely is. It's so important for leaders to not be so hyper focused on numbers and results, but really look at, all right, if I am the metaphorical parent of this organization, what is the quote the family that I'm creating here? What are our values? Do people feel safe? Do people know like what to do beyond just their job? And that's an area that I'm really passionate about, and that I feel is really lacking in a lot of organizations. And it's mostly lacking because people don't know how to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
So how can you do it for someone else
Yeah.
if you don't know how to do it for yourself? So, most people that get to, and I was one of these people, most people that get to high degrees of success or high degrees of leadership have low self-worth and have gone into the compensatory strategy of overachieving and being really good at things, and have tried to deal with their own wounds of insecurity and not feeling enough and not feeling like they belong by being successful.
Hmm.
And so here you are, a person who is basically successful because they had such a high drive to prove themselves, leading an organization. How is that going to create psychological safety? It just doesn't. So, and like I said, I was one of those people. Didn't fit in, bullied as a kid, had other trauma happen. And so the way that I found my worth in the world was to become a straight A student, graduate from high school early, graduate from college early, move out to Hollywood, was the youngest ever female agent, was making a lot of money by the time I was 22 years old. Like I checked all the boxes, but enough was never enough. And I was able to be very successful very quickly because I was so driven by my pain. So driven. And pain can really propel you. It can either totally stop you in your tracks, or it can catapult you like into something. However, you kind of feel like a fraud when you get there, and you're always consistently trying to prove, and enough is never enough. So again, that's why just doing this kind of work that we're talking about is so important, so that we can actually get to where we want to get in life authentically and from a place of wholeness, not from a place of brokenness.
I love the application, how you put it. You know, you're creating this family as an organizational, leader, right?
Mhm.
Or business leader, and those family values, they are congruent. The way that you do it within your home yourself, it's just a pattern of realization. Uh, that is such an inherent, I believe, uh, component of principles, right? Like if we're recognizing the patterns in our own lives and we're not willing to sit down with you as a CEO because we just want our team to do it, then there's a pattern there that you're not realizing within yourself, that you're not taking that responsibility, that 100% responsibility for, but hoping and praying that somebody else does it for you. And so it's like, I believe, like you, that we are, the parents of our organizations, and we get to be the example. It's not about
Yes.
actually necessarily telling our teams what we need to do. It's about being there with them and doing it right next to them.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is like that full commitment, that full tenacity, that willingness to go all in right next to, and it helping them see that it's not a hierarchy, that it's actually an organism, right? That
Right.
the organization is an organism, it's not a hierarchy. And this changes the behavior. The CEO, uh, Casey Sheehan, that really built Patagonia to its nature in the way of this teal organizational philosophy of evolutionary psychology within the way it's based off of self-management principles of billions of years old, of what we're inherently here to embody. And I find in so many, if more of these organizations are willing to step into this level of congruent behavior, and these leaders are willing to do the work alongside great, guides like yourself, myself, and many others that are walking this planet, we can then really help them identify and understand that as a result, these corporations or organizations can then come together and do even bigger things for the community at large. And then as a result of that, that community at large can do more for its city, for its state, for its country.
Absolutely.
So, what do you feel when it comes to this type of this? And I love how you said we're all leaders, right? When it comes to this leadership within ourselves, what do we need to do to influence ourselves? If I'm a CEO listening right now, or if I'm a business leader right now that has a team of 10, 20, 100, what do
Mhm.
I need to do to really tap more into this relationship with myself? What are
Mhm.
what are 2, 3 steps that you would suggest?
Oh my gosh, it can be so different for everyone because everybody gets to where they are for different reasons. But I think the first thing, if we go back to regulation, is all right, like how regulated am I? When I sit down and have a moment, what's my anxiety level like? How do I sleep at night? Can I turn my mind off? Can I actually be present? When I breathe, do I actually breathe below my throat? Does my breath get all the way down to the base of my spine? Am I even aware of where my body is in space? So that's the first step, is like, what is my nervous system doing? Like, am I in a hyper or hypo aroused state? Like, am I dysregulated? And really looking at like how grounded and regulated am I? Because that builds trust. If I show up to, like, I just did a 100-person retreat, and if I show up and I'm just regulated, even if I look calm, cool, and collected, but if inside my anxiety level's up, my mind's on something else, I'm worried about a million things, or I feel all this pressure or whatever, that's going to be felt by everyone in that moment who I'm supposed to be leading. Again, even if I appear calm. So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be to really look at your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Like, why are you in the position that you're in? Like, what has propelled you there? And has any of it come from pain? Are you using your position in any way to feel better about yourself? Are you using your position in any way to finally prove to dad that you're worth something? To finally prove to those kids in middle school that you're worth something? To finally prove to yourself that you can do it? Like, and people may say, well, but I really want the company to do well and I really care about people and da da da. And that can be all true, but I really want people to get honest about like why. Like, what are you getting from this? And it's not bad. Like, I'm super honest about the fact that so much of my career was driven by wanting to prove myself. And my ego got so much comfort from the money, the job, the success, all those kinds of things. It's not my come from anymore, but it was for a long time. I also really loved what I did and loved helping people and all those things, but I had to get really honest with myself about, okay, how much of my pain is propelling me here? Because we want our vision to pull us. We don't want our pain to push us. So that would be number two. Number three, I would really look at, what have I swept under the rug? Because time does not heal all wounds. It just doesn't. And you may think that, you know, your mother abandoning you in some way when you were 4 isn't affecting your leadership style, but it is. It is on some way or another. So it's like, what have you swept under the rug, or that first marriage, or that old heartbreak, or that fight you had with a friend 10 years ago, or that thing that someone said to you in 8th grade that broke your heart? Like, what have you swept under the rug that you actually aren't addressing because you're too busy?
Mm.
And address it. So those would be my top 3.
Beautiful. Facing, having the courage to actually face it.
Yes. Yes.
Because, this is something interesting. It's like when it comes to that, and there's a powerful mirror like yourself that is offering support to this leader, and you're reflecting back to them their ability to step up, and how do you navigate that conversation so that they are empowered to step into uh, that next stage of
Mm.
their own healing, their own self development? Because I find that some and some egos get really big, and they're just like, "What do you mean you're sharing this?" So you really have to learn. Again, this is myself for myself. I've had to learn to navigate uh, the energy in a way that is really encouraging and insightful and compassionate,
Mm.
um, so that there's a way where they're really excited to step into that congruent
Mm.
work. What
Yeah.
do you feel is the importance there, and how do you approach the situation where people are, there's they're coming from very high state of intelligence or high net worth or a lot of impact, a lot of responsibility. um, what's been best for you?
Well, I do the thing that I'm going to be asking them to do, which is create psychological safety. So, my leadership style, and all leaders, I help them find their own. My leadership style is compassion. That is something that comes naturally to me, and that I find has been so effective for myself and my own inner child and my own being, that it's what I use when I work with anybody else. So whether someone is worth $50 billion or $5, to me, they're just a person. And I have found that just really going in with so much compassion and so much safety and so much regulation, because if I were to get too attached to helping this person, if I were to feel the pressure they were feeling of like, here's this leader, they've got all this, lots at stake, their company's lost $20 million and I'm coming in to help, I'm going to feel the pressure. So in my own leadership style, I need to not take any of that pressure on, not let my ego get invested and, I need to be the one to help this person, and just really come in with so much love and so much presence and so much compassion and so much safety, and just be really, really curious. I have, like I said, 20 years of experience, so much training. There's a lot of information and tools in my brain. They're not nearly as effective as curiosity and compassion.
Mm.
And I have found that naturally what needs to come forward does. Because when someone actually feels safe with another person and unconditionally loved and held, and they actually feel like someone has compassion, they will open up. Not necessarily the first session. But it does happen. I have a 100% success rate with that. And this comes back to what you were saying about children and just the natural essence of who we are. We want to love and be loved. We want to connect. We truly do. And I think a lot of people, especially people that are leaders that are in more high stake, high profile, high responsibility positions, is they feel so responsible for so many things that they actually don't have much space to truly connect, to truly feel like someone else has them. So that's what I see my role as, if I coach, whenever I coach anyone, is to be like, I got you on this. Like,
Mm.
you can relax. I got this. So that's my answer.
I love it. Do you feel like sometimes that energy, even with them, if they're in a state of like real, maybe past trauma or toxic behavior, is something that allows you to step into even more compassion?
Well, yeah, I mean, if someone's in, well, those two things. So past trauma, then I know that they're really going to be in a hyper arousal, or they're going to be in a trauma response state, right? And so most of their responses, reactions are going to be coming from wanting to protect themselves and wanting to feel safe. So the more I can help them process that trauma, start to feel that regulation again, and start to feel that safety, then it's like we can start getting somewhere. Someone that feels like they're in a toxic situation or anything like that, they're going to have some shame, and
Or they're
shame is,
projecting.
yeah,
They're
protecting.
projecting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, when there's shame, we get aggressive. A lot of people get aggressive because
Yeah.
aggressive, defensive, justifying, all that kind of stuff, because shame spirals are nasty. They're nasty, nasty. And we don't like them. And so a lot of times it can either create a collapse, or for most people that are in leadership positions, it creates a hyper defensiveness, justifying, all of that type of stuff. So really, again, creating that safety, creating that compassion, and creating a space for the shame to be seen and owned, and talked about, then we can clear it and move forward.
Yeah, I love this. This is really important. Just the awareness of it too, of anybody that's listening to like hearing this is so profound because it then allows people to say, hey, like you have to be open to that compassion. You have to also, right? It takes two, even if we create the space and like that shame is so strong and projected or toxic that they just need to push away that
Right.
defense mechanism. Maybe for anybody that's listening is like, hold on a second, maybe this person is actually really doing his or her best to open up the door to help you step into that. And so
Yeah.
uh, it's profound. Like it's nice to hear you say it, because sometimes it's better heard from somebody else's. Most times, it's better heard from somebody else's perspective. Coming
Yeah.
coming through. So, what's
No, it's
next
so
for you?
true. And can I say
Go ahead.
something to that? I wanted to
Please,
say,
please,
'cause,
please. Yes, yes. Sorry, my
um,
apologies for cutting you off.
I know I have a coach now, and she always reminds me, she's like, Christine, beginner's mind, hear this with beginner's mind, because she's saying things that I know, but I have to like put away all my my knowledge, and this is so important for leaders because a lot of times we can think we know a lot, and to really be coached and to really receive and to really be able to grow as a leader, you have to be coachable. And you can't be coachable if you're a know-it-all. And so one thing I remind myself as a leader is I don't know everything. And there are times when I am the person leading, and there are times when I am not the person leading. And when I can really sit back in that beginner's mind, let me learn, let me be a student, you're the leader now, then I can receive and I can actually grow. So that's another thing that I see a lot of leaders not do, is
Mhm.
have that beginner's mind and allow themselves to be led and really surrender into that more vulnerable, less in control position.
The innocence, right? It gets to
Right.
come back to the innocence, right? Where it's just really so profound. And I find that innocence really allows us to step into that authentic, vulnerable approach where we get to learn from each other. Like, if we are willing to be vulnerable like children right now and just say, hey, I don't know this, Christine, help me. Let's figure this out. You know, it gives us a behavior where people around us, just by us having the conversation, are willing to drop into that behavior as well. And I believe that that creates, like you said, that psychological, that psychological safety.
Yeah.
Um, so this, yeah, this is really beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. I love talking about this stuff.
So what's next for you? What's on the horizon for you and your family? What are
Oh my
you? What's
goodness. Um, well, the past 2 years, I've really devoted myself to motherhood. I don't think I really truly embodied the word devotion. I always had a
Mm,
spiritual practice, but I don't think I really embodied devotion until I became a mother. Because I can think back to before I was married and before I was a mother, life was real easy when it came to like feeling balanced and feeling regulated and like doing the work and everything. And then marriage and then a child, it's like, wow, that's when you're really like, okay, how integrated am I in these tools? Because they're beautiful and they're a blessing and they're also very triggering. So I have just loved that I've been able to devote so much time to her. The years 0 to 3 are just so pivotal for a child, really all of childhood, but especially those first 3 years, first 5 years. So I devote a lot of time to play and presence and just being with her. Um, as I mentioned, I'm so passionate about inner child work. And so my husband and I, we already have an inner child workshop, but we're actually going to be launching a 10-week journey of healing inner child because this is such a thing that's up for people right now. And the inner child, it can be kind of elusive and like, how do I do it? And I don't remember my childhood and I can't connect. And so this is our specialty. So we really want to take people through that journey. I don't know when this is going to air, but we are doing a free 3-day workshop, February 6th through 8th,
Amazing.
where you can come. It's called Journey to Joy. It's only like an hour to 90 minutes a day, both with me and my husband, Stephanos. And people can go to christinehaster.com/joy and sign up for that. So
And
that's
is there any other events that you have planned later on in the year, or anything that anybody
yeah.
could check out, or is everything just on the website christinehassler.com?
Well, it is, but I'll highlight a few things. So the inner child workshop is there. It'll be an evergreen workshop too at christinehassler.com/inner child. And then you mentioned the Elementum Coaching Institute, my other
Mm,
baby,
mm.
which is another thing I'm so proud of and so passionate about. I've been coaching for so long, and I feel like I'm at the point in my own career where I want to coach coaches. I want to help I have my business. I've had a very successful coaching career and I want to pass the baton. So I love coaching and training coaches. And we have so many people that are in leadership positions that come into the Elementum Coaching Institute. It's a training program from September to April. Very comprehensive, only coaching program where we really deal with somatics, trauma, nervous system regulation, inner child work, internal family systems. I mean, it is so dense. We want to really build like embodied integrated coaches with a huge tool set. And there's so much personal development that happens in that program because we believe that every coach is their own best client.
Mm.
And that is, again, starts in September and ends in April. And like I was saying, we have so many people that maybe not want to be coaches as their profession, but know that they need to be coaches in their profession. They're leaders, they run organizations, they're entrepreneurs, they manage people, or they just like want to be a better parent. And so they join us as well. So that's a really incredible program.
Amazing. I love it. Sounds super interesting. I definitely agree. You know, leaders need this and they need to really apply this knowledge into their organizational skills.
Yes.
So beautiful, beautiful work. So last final question before we go. If you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
Oh, if I had 3 days left to live, I would spend every second with my husband and daughter. You know,
Beautiful.
that's what wouldn't want to waste time traveling, but I'd want to be at the ocean. You know, I'd want to be somewhere in nature, and I just would soak. It makes me emotional thinking about it. Like I just would want to soak them in.
Such a blessing to get to know you, to get to meet you. Thank you for all your incredible work that you do. And I really look forward to connecting more.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for listening to the Resilient Minds. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure to go comment and like and follow us on iTunes or Spotify, and make sure, please make sure that if you really love this, to share this episode, and make sure that you're inviting all your friends to like it as we continue to unfold what the beauty of our minds does. More importantly, how powerful our heart level of intelligence can be when we combine our heart and our brain together. And more importantly, make sure you take the time to take a look at what we're doing at Balanced Media Ventures and how we can actually really support you in doubling your impact, your income, and your influence, and how you can bring your life's greatest vision into your purpose and create it from that level of reality. Talk to you soon.